A scene of utter destruction. We're live over a Barrie neighborhood hit by a powerful tornado. Tonight, stories of survival are emerging from the rubble.
On the ground, there is shock and heartbreak. So many residents left to pick up the pieces.
We couldn't even really stay down at the bottom of the stairs because the dust was coming down through the door. I had no idea what we were going to see. I was not prepared for walking upstairs and seeing the sky.
It touched down quickly with tremendous force. Environment Canada confirming an EF2 tornado. Good evening. Witnesses say it's a miracle no lives were lost.
But there were injuries, and more than 100 people are without a home to go to tonight. We have extensive coverage of the aftermath of this powerful force of nature. And we begin with CTV's John Musselman on Sun King Crescent, a neighborhood that felt the full wrath of this tornado. John.
Well, Michelle, and behind me, you can see that car is still flipped on its roof. We also learned today that that is a daycare, a home-operated daycare. We heard a very frightening story from the owner about getting the children to safety in the basement. And we'll just pan over as well to give you an extent of the damage in this neighborhood. The house on the corner here of Sun King was dislodged from its foundation, and it looks to be a write-off. This has been a very busy day in here. There are a lot of trucks, dumpsters. The cleanup here is now well underway. The devastation is everywhere you look, and the stories of people escaping the tornado are frightening. Valerie Vanturo and Greg Hepburn moved into their home just 2 months ago. The roof is gone. The couple huddled on the main floor with their puppy Mason. They couldn't make it to the basement. Debris was flying everywhere inside the home when the roof blew off.
We managed to get down to just the landing, and then the roof came off, and the whole house was bright. And then we didn't make it to the basement in time, so we just hid in front of the hall closet, and all the windows were blowing in. It sounded like an explosion. The sound was just incredible.
You had your headphones on?
Yeah, so I work up in that room, and she barged in and yelled there's a tornado and grabbed the dog, grabbed in her arms, and kind of took me a moment to realize what was happening, and then we just started running.
Across the street, this neighbor says she hid under a desk.
Yeah, I heard the glass, and then I looked out my window because obviously I was in the basement, and I saw the fences doing one of these, just waving back and forth, and it actually started like flying past my window. I was like, maybe I'll get on the ground, so I hopped down and got under my desk.
Local city councillor Natalie Harris fought back tears today. She says her 15-year-old son was in his upstairs bedroom when the tornado hit. Her ex-husband called the house and warned them to take cover. They didn't know the tornado was minutes away.
He absolutely for sure saved Adam's life, my son, because that's his room.
They told you weren't allowed in here.
That's his room, and he sits right there. His desk is right there. And then the dogs are always on the main floor. The main floor is just destroyed too, so.
There is debris scattered everywhere. Some of the houses have collapsed onto their foundations. Yulia Berkovich runs a home daycare. She had 3 kids in her care plus 2 of her own children. She got all of them into the basement just in time. The roof collapsed into their home.
I just was sitting with them on the floor. I just set them all down on the floor, gave him a hug, and we all just stayed safe.
When the danger had passed, Berkovich used the light on her cell phone to make it to the front door. Neighbors helped her get the children out. That's when she looked out onto her driveway and saw that the car had flipped over. Down the street, this man says he was hit by flying debris and needed stitches in his arm.
Oh my gosh, it came out of nowhere. It really did.
It must have been some shrapnel just flying around. I had some glass and some wood in my arm.
It only took seconds and then it was gone.
Today, the neighborhood was filled with roofing repair crews, gas and hydro workers, and home insurance company representatives all here to assess the damage. There was a strong sense of community, neighbors checking in on neighbors to make sure everyone is okay. And despite everything that's happened here, we did hear that a lot today from people. They're so thankful that no one was killed in this tornado, and many of them saying, well, they're just glad that everyone's okay. Now it's time to start rebuilding. Reporting live in Barrie, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Help to greet people, okay? We're going to be the greeters.
Command center has been set up at the nearby St. Gabriel the Archangel Catholic School to help residents displaced by the tornado. The outpouring of help from the public so great, officials saying they're no longer accepting physical donations. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live with a terrifying account of a local daycare caught in the tornado. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, we're live outside that command center right now where dozens of volunteers have been set up since yesterday afternoon, and they, of course, are being commended for their kindness. Meanwhile, staff members at a local daycare, which is just a couple blocks away, are also being heralded for their efforts. It is an overwhelming sight for Anita Bells.
I didn't care about myself. I needed these kids to go home in one piece to their families.
Debris surrounds the daycare where she and her staff of 13 managed to save 88 children from harm yesterday with just seconds to spare.
And I looked out the window and I saw construction workers pointing at the sky. And as I did that, the power went off, and that's when I just ran with one of the other staff who was holding 2 kids in her arms.
Bells ran from room to room, screaming at staff to get children away from windows and to take shelter. In the last room, she grabbed an infant in a high chair when the tornado hit.
So that's where I yanked the tray out and I threw it on the ground and moved her up. And that's when a lot of debris was hitting that window. And I looked through that window and I couldn't see absolutely anything. I just heard bang. And I just saw things flying all over.
Today, this is the aftermath. Glass litters tiny tables where the children were having their afternoon snack. Pieces of the ceiling resting where children were once sitting.
If she delayed her thinking by 2 more minutes, then kids would have been seriously injured.
After the tornado blew over, staff smelled gas leaking.
The entire roof shifted, all the HVAC units shifted. It dragged the pipes.
At that point, again, the fear came over me, and all I remember saying to myself, God, please let me get these kids out. Please let us get these kids out of here in one piece. So then I screamed again, evacuate, evacuate.
The Learning Jungle staff gathered all of the children and ran.
I was going out to see how he was, and I saw them running down the sidewalk in like cribs.
Trish Scott was trying to check on her son, who'd been trapped in his car a few feet from her restaurant when she saw dozens of infants and toddlers outside.
Very upset, very scared.
She quickly ushered everyone into her restaurant and was relieved to learn no one had been hurt, given what they'd all just lived through.
It was everything we could do to hold the door from just blowing open. And then there was just this big wall of white, like a blizzard, and I didn't see anything, and then everything was calm. Like, it was very, very scary.
Minutes earlier, Scott's son Jackson hadn't been able to get inside his mom's restaurant, even though he was parked just steps from her door.
I could just see a bunch of trees and construction debris from where they're building the school flying across. So I just hopped back inside the car and kind of ducked under my steering wheel underneath the backpack, just bracing just in case the window shattered or something.
Belle says she's very appreciative of the Scots' hospitality and kindness yesterday afternoon. Grateful that her staff acted so quickly.
I will never forget that. I will never forget each and one of them. They were my heroes.
And thankful none of the children or staff in her center were physically harmed. Now, the COO of Learning Jungle says he has no idea when his daycare center will be able to reopen. There is so much damage. However, he says that is the least of his concerns. At this point, he says he is just eternally grateful that no one was injured. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Michelle.
What an ordeal. Thank you, Janice. And we have a closer look at the damage left behind. We put you in the pilot's seat of the CTV News Chopper, a tour of the tornado's path still to come. But first, we bring in Lindsay Morrison with more on what we've learned about this tornado. Lindsay.
Well, Michelle, survey teams from Environment Canada and the Northern Tornadoes Project were very quickly able to determine that this was in fact a tornado and that it was an EF2 on the enhanced Fujita scale with maximum winds around 210 kilometers per hour. The winds part of the equation, the damage path another 5 kilometers with this particular storm. All kinds of video, photo, and witness evidence when it comes to this particular storm, as we've seen. And an EF2 is a very strong rating. As you can see, tornadoes can cause all kinds of damage, and we have seen plenty with this particular storm in the south end of Barrie. Today, though, the weather has been significantly quieter. There was sunshine earlier in the day in Barrie. Now we're seeing some cloud cover, and there's some rain to the south of the GTA. We'll take you through your weekend weather forecast coming up. For now, Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. It is from high above. You can truly appreciate the sheer power of the tornado and the utter devastation left behind.
Neighborhoods that took years to build, torn apart in seconds. CTV's Austin Delaney's live at Buttonville Airport. Our CTV News Chopper giving us a real picture of this powerful force of nature, Austin.
On the ground at eye level, the destruction is devastating, what happened in South Barrie yesterday. But from the air, from our chopper, from a bird's eye view, a whole different perspective of what happened. The residents tell me the twisters sat on their homes for just 15 seconds. But in that short time, it left their lives exposed. Roofs gone, windows and doors knocked out. This home, its entire second floor gone. The staircase now a path to nowhere. An office chair sits next to a desk. The bathroom gone. The entire contents of that second floor spewed across the back lawn. In the debris, we see the bathtub upside down on the ground. Down the street, the roof is torn off. Some of the wood from the frame launched with such force, it pierced the neighbor's roof like arrows. A few houses down, we spot a family going room to room on their second floor, salvaging whatever was not taken by the wind. So forceful, it ripped the sheets off the bed. This bed mattress had taken flight, stopping only after piercing an exposed roof beam. In this house, what appears to have been a teenager's room, a fish tank now empty. This house fell on itself, in that the first story collapsed, the front door and the brick siding laying on the ground. What was someone's backyard escaped with a pool, now a mess. A trampoline in the water, no way of knowing from the air if that trampoline blew in from someone else's yard. Residents told us they found their neighbors' items, including a rug, in their living room. The damage from these trucks would indicate they were tossed into the air, landing far from where they were parked before the storm hit. And from the air, it's easy to see that some of these families are going to be out of their homes for quite some time as they rebuild. Reporting live, I'm Austin Delaney.
Thank you, Austin. He wanted to see the damage for himself. Today, Ontario Premier Doug Ford toured areas hit hard by the tornado, offering support for those impacted. CTV's Zoraida Ullman joins us live now with more on the emergency response. Zoraida.
Michelle, officials say the magnitude of the damage caused by the tornado is being matched by the tremendous effort now underway to help those affected. It started yesterday, literally minutes after the tornado struck. Members of the community, first responders, local businesses, all swarming to the area where the tornado hit, trying to see what they could do to help. And today, Doug Ford was on the ground in Barrie as well, telling residents the province, too, is there to help.
Have you had a chance to reach out to the insurance company yet?
The Premier on the ground in South Barrie surveying the damage.
You can see how one side of the street, not a leaf is touched, and then all of a sudden it takes these houses out. The lesson learned, in my opinion, is we stick together.
Doug Ford promising residents Ontario is there to help.
Anything you need, sir, you just call.
But the mobilization effort began almost immediately after the EF2 tornado barreled through this neighborhood, ripping apart people's homes, leaving a trail of destruction and debris.
The assistance that's been given to Barrie from across the province, from our neighbors especially, has just been exemplary.
Volunteer groups have organized.
Everything from receiving supplies to organizing these supplies, basically passing out food and water.
Local businesses have arrived to pitch in what they can.
We've got the Allendale Home Hardware crew that was out here today, handing out brooms, gloves, shovels, what have you. The local pool guys have been coming by to help people with that debris. It's just incredible that everyone's trying to pitch in as much as they can.
And first responders remain on the ground, not just as officials, but as neighbors and fellow residents.
It's very difficult to be here knowing that these families' lives have been literally uprooted.
More than 100 people have been displaced from their homes. The community still in grateful disbelief. There was no loss of life.
A lot of people had that instinct to go down to the basement or seek shelter in their home. We're no stranger to severe weather in central Ontario, and I think people's instincts saved them yesterday.
And today, the common goal, to help those whose lives have been turned upside down get back on their feet.
Character of a community is really shown on its most difficult day, and this is the character of this city.
And again, officials say 10 people in total were sent to hospital for their injuries. All but 2 have now been released. The Premier promising today that whatever damage insurance doesn't cover, the province will step in to help cover the cost. I'm Zoraida Ullman. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Zoraida. And we have more online, including extended video that shows the extent of the damage. Head to ctvnewstoronto.ca, and there's a link on our homepage.
Turning to another big story impacting millions of people in Ontario.
Welcome to Step 3. More freedoms arrived at midnight, including being able to go to the gym and dine indoors. CTV's John Woodward is live on the Danforth tonight, where the busy dinner rush is underway. John.
Nathan, customers have already filtered into the restaurants here with a new opportunity going indoors, something restaurants hope is going to mean more revenue for them. One of many changes today businesses hope will mean for the better. The smell of that popcorn was one thing that brought Jude Sorley and Jane Stewart back to Varsity Theaters for a double bill. They've been watching movies together for 30 years.
Came up the stairs and we saw each other, hugged. There are a lot, so we've really missed the theater.
There hasn't been a show here since October. The theater made it through by selling popcorn and candy over smartphone apps. Now it's open at 50% capacity.
So far, the response has been overwhelming, happy. People are just happy to be able to socialize once again and be able to see the movies of their choice, and they want to see it on the big screen.
Also part of the move to Step 3, allowing museums and other attractions to open at 50% capacity. Same with indoor sports and fitness facilities 5 days earlier than planned.
We are taking safety very seriously. We had 9 million workouts before the closure and not a single linked case of transmission in any of our clubs. So it's safe, our clubs are clean. Come back, we're ready for you.
Restaurants now allowed indoor dining with physical distancing.
Over 50% of restaurants in Toronto don't even have a patio, so today's a very big day for everybody.
Brick Farm Breakfast hasn't been open in 18 months. Co-owner Victoria Hobel has a plan for bringing back the regulars. Free coffee.
The hope is that we'll have people on the patio as well as inside, and yeah, I just want to be a success.
Up to 25 people can attend indoor gatherings and 100 people outdoors. Dr. Fahad Razak says it's the right time to reopen, but it's still important to be cautious.
Follow the regulations so that we on the science side can then look at signal. We can detect if there is a rise of cases and know that we may have to adjust our policy.
For me, for sure, it's like safety first. So, and it's been that way since the start. So I only like it if there's, enough space between people.
The food is fresh, but so is the memory of the pandemic.
The wild card here is the Delta variant, which caused surges in the UK after restrictions were removed there. In the Netherlands, they're looking at 10,000 or more cases a day. Here, officials are hoping a more cautious approach will mean less likely to have that disease spread and less likely that there will be any lockdowns returning. Reporting live from the Danforth, I'm John Woodward. Back to you, Michelle.
Thank you, John. BMO Field will be rocking tomorrow when Toronto FC plays its first home game with fans in nearly a year and a half.
Everyone's really excited. We've been able to train here, a couple of the last training days and work our way onto the field and really see the atmosphere. So definitely excited.
The crowd will be capped at 7,000 for Saturday's match against Orlando. Only healthcare workers, first responders, and season ticket holders will be in attendance. 15,000 fans will be allowed into the stadium next Wednesday's game against New York. No one will be asked if they've been vaccinated, but fans are required to self-screen for COVID-19 and wear masks.
The Blue Jays are still hoping to return to the Rogers Centre this season, and today the province went to bat for them. Ontario sports minister wrote to her federal counterpart asking that the Jays be allowed to play in Canada. Lisa McLeod says in Step 3 that could happen with limited fans. Ottawa's cooperation is needed to let the Jays and their opponents cross the border.
While officials say cases could rise as a result of the Step 3 reopening, today's numbers are once again below 200. 159 COVID infections were confirmed over the last day, as the province's total approaches 546,000 since the start of the pandemic. 189 more illnesses are considered resolved, putting that count past 537,000. 10 more deaths are linked to the virus, bringing the total number of lives lost to 9,285.
Across the GTA, 23 cases were confirmed in Toronto and 12 in Peel region. Health officials confirmed 9 infections in Hamilton, 8 in Durham, 7 in Halton region, and 6 in Niagara. But take a look at this. Out of all the tests processed in York region over the last day, none came back positive.
Peel region has launched a new initiative to get doses into the arms of residents who may have been waiting for a specific brand of vaccine.
I'm here today to take my second dose to protect the community and ourselves.
It's the first Pfizer Friday at all of Peel's mass vaccination clinics. During Ontario's rollout, some people have turned down Moderna shots, citing a preference for Pfizer. Health experts say the two mRNA vaccines are basically identical.
Across the province, 17.8 million COVID-19 shots have gone into arms since the rollout began. That includes well over 168,000 administered over the last day. 10.2 million Ontarians are at least partially vaccinated, and that figure jumped by 20,000 on Thursday as more people got their first doses. 7.5 million residents are now fully vaccinated after 148,000 received a second shot on Thursday.
Our land border with the U.S. has been closed to non-essential travel for 16 months, but that may soon change.
The Trudeau government is floating the idea of letting fully vaccinated Americans into Canada starting in mid-August. CTV's Glenn McGregor reports.
The Canada-U.S. border could soon open a little wider. Barred from all but essential travel since March 2020, the Prime Minister told provincial premiers last night that fully vaccinated Americans could be free to cross it by mid-August. And immunized visitors from other countries possibly starting in September, if COVID infections continue to fall and vaccination numbers keep rising. The goal is encouraging, but still not soon enough for many businesses.
Allowing fully vaccinated Americans into Canada seems like something that we should have been able to start a lot earlier than the end of August.
The details of how the reopening will unfold are still to be determined. Will U.S. citizens need negative COVID tests before travel and on arrival, as currently required for fully vaccinated Canadians returning home? Also unclear. Without a vaccination passport system, how will Americans prove they've had their shots?
What I think we need is a secure and quick way to confirm that people have had vaccines. Not just vaccines that we offer here in Canada, but vaccines that are approved by the WHO.
The federal government's ArriveCan app requires travelers to upload copies of vaccination receipts issued by provincial and territorial authorities, which are verified by the Canada Border Services Agency. But visitors from the U.S. may have immunization records issued by any one of hundreds of state and county health authorities, making them harder to confirm. Although COVID rates are falling in Canada, they are rising in all 50 U.S. states, where a full 44% of the population hasn't had a single shot. Glenn McGregor, CTV News, Ottawa.
In Florida, the body of a third Canadian has been recovered from the rubble of the condominium that collapsed last month. Global Affairs Canada has not released the name of the person whose family members are being assisted by consular officials. 4 Canadians from 3 families are believed to have died after the building fell in Surfside on June 24th. The remains of former Montrealer Ingrid Itty Ainsworth and her Australian-born husband were recovered from the site earlier this month.
In BC, the battle against more than 300 forest fires rages on tonight. Residents have already been ordered to leave about 1,500 homes, and evacuation alerts remain for many more. Heat warnings for parts of the central and southern interior have ended, and some areas might see showers, but they could be accompanied by lightning. In Saskatchewan, the number of wildfires also continues to rise.
It's being called a catastrophe of historic dimensions. More than 120 people have died in Western Europe, where the flood waters are still rising. The floods are sweeping through western regions of Germany, swamping streets and demolishing homes. Over 1,000 people are missing. Hundreds more are homeless after days of heavy rain. A day of mourning has been declared for Tuesday in neighboring Belgium, which has also been hit hard. At least 20 people have been killed there, with another 20 missing.
The opening ceremony for the Tokyo Olympics is 1 week tonight, and there are some more signs of opposition to the Games. Demonstrators marched in the host city today, upset the Olympics are being held in the midst of a pandemic. There were more than 1,200 new COVID-19 cases in Tokyo today, and that's up from about 800 a week ago.
One of the world's most famous tourist attractions has reopened after 9 months. Visitors are now allowed again at the Eiffel Tower, but they must prove they've been fully vaccinated, had a negative test, or recently recovered from COVID-19. And the number of visitors will be limited to 10,000 a day. Recent acts of hate in London and Hamilton prompted a new neighborhood initiative aimed at creating connections and cultivating kindness. Companion Champions coming up later in the newscast.
I'm Pat Foran. Coming up, it's Feedback Friday. We have an update on our story last night about a canceled honeymoon due to mixed vaccines. More people say they've been overcharged booking hotel rooms, and viewers had lots to say about big pickup trucks getting even bigger. Feedback Friday is just ahead.
It's been dry today here in the city of Toronto, but some areas to our south and to our west have been soggy. Southwestern Ontario, some portions already picking up 75 millimeters of rain today, and there is a rainfall warning in effect from Windsor all the way to Niagara and St. Catharines, just hugging that Lake Erie shoreline. An additional 30 to 50 millimeters of rain is going to be possible in some areas through the night and into tomorrow morning. Current temperatures, it's been cooler today in the wake of yesterday's cold front. We're talking daytime highs in the low 20s this time around, but feeling warmer than that once you factored in the humidity. 18 is our forecast overnight low. It is going to be an unsettled start to the weekend in many areas, but I have good news when it comes to sunshine. I'll show you when it arrives just ahead in your weekend forecast. CTV News will be back in 2 minutes.
We're learning more tonight about the victims in a deadly boating crash in cottage country.
A Toronto teenager and an Oakville woman were killed when two boats collided on Lake Rosso Wednesday night. CTV's Beth McDonnell reports.
This is a tragedy. We're not sure why this happened.
A Toronto parish and school community is in mourning. Blessed Sacrament parish leaders tell CTV News 13-year-old Quinn Cameron is one of two people who died in a crash between two boats on Lake Rosso Wednesday evening. They say dozens of people attended a vigil for the recent grade 8 graduate and valedictorian last night at her school.
The silence was overwhelming. It was very difficult as a pastor to go over there knowing these students.
Youth Director Joanna Manturovich has known Cameron for 3 years through ministry programs.
She was a compassionate, soft, gentle, joyful girl. I think she was a little bit more on the quieter side, but she was very gentle.
These three leaders, all especially touched by words from Cameron's valedictorian speech, read aloud, they say, by the school principal.
I think that took a lot of people to crying and grieving.
The passion in his words of her quoting even Dr. Seuss, or, talking to the grade A, saying how this is going to be, the best summer. I'm looking forward to the future, looking forward to high school. Her excitement, her passion, her joy really spoke through her speech.
In a statement, the Toronto Catholic District School Board says, this news has been devastating for all of us, and our hearts go out to the student's family as they deal with this tremendous loss. We are grateful for the support of the local parish, staff, and the team of social workers and grief counselors who have been available to support the school community during this difficult time. The community is also praying for Cameron's mother. The church says she was critically injured and is now at Sunnybrook Hospital. The OPP says there were 3 people in each of the 2 boats, and witnesses reported several people in the water. A 51-year-old woman from Oakville also died. Her body recovered Thursday afternoon.
Very difficult, and this has only happened to me once before with a 2-year-old. Never before do I have had to bury a child.
The cause of the crash is still not known. The parish says they are praying for the affected families and truly believe Cameron is in heaven. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
There's been a horrifying discovery in Whitchurch-Stouffville. The body of a 16-year-old boy found in a ditch near Woodbine and Vivian Road is now the center of a homicide investigation. How the boy died is still not known. All investigators will say is that the death is suspicious. Last night, we told you about a couple who canceled their honeymoon to Barbados because the country didn't recognize people with mixed vaccines as being fully vaccinated.
Well, what a difference a day makes. Following our story, the tourism ministry there did a quick about-face. Pat Foran has an update for us on Feedback Friday. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan. Michelle, after our report, the tourism ministry in Barbados changed its website and later issued a news release. The country says it will now recognize people with mixed vaccines as being fully vaccinated.
It was exciting to hear that they've changed their policy.
Eric and Jennifer Seed called it wonderful news that the island of Barbados changed its vaccination policy following their story. The couple planned to go there for their honeymoon, but canceled when they were told they would have to quarantine because Barbados didn't consider someone with mixed vaccines as fully vaccinated.
So it has to be 2 Pfizers, 2 Modernas, etc.
After our report, the Barbados Ministry of Tourism issued a news release stating the government of Barbados continues to review and update its travel protocols. The latest update, effective July 16th, will allow for travelers with mixed vaccines to be categorized as fully vaccinated. The Seeds called it good news for anyone with mixed vaccines.
That's fantastic. I'm glad Barbados is being more welcoming.
We understand that, during the times of COVID, people have to pivot and change and adjust their policies.
When Stephanie Blank booked a hotel room online, she thought she was booking directly with the hotel, but she was actually on a third-party website that charged her a booking fee of $187.
I couldn't believe that this even happened.
Anthony told us, I checked my credit card statement and realized the same thing happened to me a month ago. I thought I booked through the hotel, but it was a third party and I was charged more. New pickup trucks have gotten longer, taller, and heavier. Data found these big trucks have poor front sight lines and bigger blind spots that can hide a pedestrian or smaller car right in front.
That blind spot is literally right under your nose.
Peter wrote, I bought a 2020 Ram 1500 and it commands respect and space on the road. I will not apologize for keeping my family safe from terrible drivers, and I'm grateful for my vehicle. Another viewer said many pickup trucks are now so large they won't fit in a regular parking space, so many are now using two spaces. Some truck owners said they don't want to, but they have to because their trucks are so big. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, many looking forward to this weekend because, as you know, we're in step 3 finally.
And I think the weather doesn't matter as much now because you can enjoy some activities inside. It's permitted in step 3.
Yeah, so that provides a little bit of relief to us forecasters as well. We feel a little bit better about the situation if people can, in fact, move safely indoors. Tomorrow morning, it might be a little bit of an unsettled start to your Saturday, but by the end of the day, we're expecting some clearing, and Sunday at this point is looking sunny. Weather is brought to you by Train. For home comfort, cooling, and clean air, it's hard to stop a train. We'll begin first with a look at the satellite and radar. It hasn't been dry today everywhere. We've had a fair amount of cloud cover around the GTA, and as you can see, it is raining to our south and has been for a good portion of the day, especially in the extreme southwest. This is courtesy of a series of lows which are for the most part remaining south of the international border. Not entirely. We're going to be on just the northern edge of it as it sweeps its way eastward. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we're likely going to be waking up to some wet weather here in Toronto. There's 6:30 a.m. As the day goes on, we're going to see the low itself start to depart. And with that, showers are going to taper off. By the evening hours, hopefully the rain will have subsided and moved on out. Cloud cover likely to stick around, but don't worry. As we make our way into Sunday, there will be some impressive clearing, and there's just a chance of maybe a pop-up shower as we make our way through the second half of that day. So overall, not a bad-looking weekend forecast. It's certainly not a washout, and it will be drier the further north you are. Tonight's lows are pretty well where they should be for this time of year, 18 in the city of Toronto. Tomorrow, we can expect the daytime high to be somewhere around 23 degrees, feeling a little bit warmer than that once you do factor in the humidity. It's not overly oppressive. Here's your weekend forecast in a nutshell. I remain optimistic that we'll maybe see some late day sun here in the GTA. And Sunday, mainly sunny to start out with a little bit of an increase in cloud cover as it goes on. 7-day forecast looks like this. Monday is looking bright. It's going to be warm as well. Temperature up close to 30 degrees. There's a chance that there could be some potential for maybe a thunderstorm rumbling that day, keeping a close eye on that one. Tuesday, potential for it to be a little more unsettled, 40% chance of showers, and an afternoon high of 26. So getting a little bit cooler. However, the temperature remains slightly below seasonal as we make our way through the rest of the middle to end part of next week. But it's also looking drier. This 7-day forecast not nearly as unsettled as just about every other week so far in the month of July. That's the weather. Nathan, over to you.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. As Ontario continues to open up, the COVID-19 assessment center at St. Michael's Hospital is closing down. Still to come, the role of testing as the pandemic progresses.
As Ontario enters step 3, St. Michael's Hospital is marking another milestone.
It's closing its COVID-19 assessment center. The details from CTV health reporter Pauline Chan.
16 months and more than 103,000 swabs later, the COVID-19 assessment unit at the Li Ka-shing building of St. Mike's officially closed today.
We have developed and grown this team that is by far, in a way, the toughest group of people that I've ever had the opportunity to work with. Toughest and the most compassionate.
At the height of the pandemic, the clinic conducted close to 600 tests per day. And Dana Whittam recalls one day when a computer glitch caused 22 tests to be booked every 3 minutes instead of every 15 minutes.
And that was on Boxing Day. So what ended up happening was an all-hands-on-deck call. Everyone came in and we managed to test everyone that was actually scheduled.
Now the center sees less than 100 patients a day, so it will be closed to the public and used only for staff and pre-operative tests. Closures of full-time assessment centers are happening around the city. Humber River closed its church site, but is continuing testing at its Finch Avenue location. They've dropped from a high of 900 tests per day to 150.
I think the need for testing will remain for a little bit because we continue to see the development of new strands of the virus.
In the longer term, Ruben Rodriguez thinks COVID testing may fall to family physicians. In addition to Humber River's Finch location, Women's College, Toronto Western, St. Joseph's, and Michael Garron will maintain COVID assessment units for the public. But they're not getting rid of any equipment at St. Mike's just yet. It will remain fully equipped just in case. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Two groups representing Ontario healthcare professionals say COVID-19 vaccines should be mandatory for all workers in that sector. The Ontario Medical Association and the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario are calling for that requirement. They say it's a necessary step to protect those frontline workers, their patients, and the community at large. Premier Doug Ford said yesterday that he encourages people to get vaccinated against COVID-19, but won't mandate it for anyone, including healthcare workers.
Production of Netflix's hit series Bridgerton was reportedly forced to halt this week because of a positive COVID-19 test on set.
Miss Daphne Bridgerton.
You have no idea what it is to have one's entire life reduced to a single moment.
Deadline reports shooting was paused for 24 hours after a crew member was infected, but filming was set to resume today after the person affected went into isolation. Everyone else tested negative.
Theaters are allowed to reopen across Ontario under Step 3 as more stage shows in the U.S. announce COVID-19 requirements. The drama Passover says it will require proof of vaccination from all guests or a recent negative COVID test when it begins previews in August. That's almost identical to the policy adopted by Springsteen on Broadway when it opened last month. So far, no industry-wide plan has been outlined ahead of the wider reopening of Broadway in September. When Game of Thrones wrapped up in 2019, there were plans for a few spin-off series, but it looks like one of them isn't going to happen. The Hollywood Reporter spoke with sources who say a live-action show set in the slums of King's Landing has been scrapped. But 2 animated series and a few other projects are reportedly still in the works. HBO's only officially announced plans for House of the Dragon, a separate prequel created by author George R.R. Martin.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
We're getting a sneak preview of some new emojis set to be released later this year. We'll have more on the new additions being considered when we come back.
We got breaking news tonight. The Blue Jays have announced they will be returning to Toronto at the end of the month. The team released a statement on Twitter saying they've been granted a national interest exemption, which will allow them to play at the Rogers Centre. Their first game back will be on July 30th. Now, here are the rest of tonight's top stories.
We've went through a real challenging time over the last 16, 17 months. Everyone's helped out, and we're going to do the same here.
The Premier is promising support for Barrie residents affected by a tornado which hit the city yesterday. At least 10 people were injured and dozens of homes were damaged.
I can tell you that Cineplex and us here at the Scotiabank Theatre are really excited to be opening up our doors to guests, families, couples, and welcoming back all our Cineplex employees back.
Movie theaters have reopened along with gyms and indoor dining as Ontario is now in Step 3 of reopening. The province is hoping the loosened restrictions will provide a boost to Ontario's economy.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca. Well, what a day it's been for residents in a South Barrie neighborhood.
Many who will need a place to live, likely for months. And that's the focus of a discussion on CP24 tonight. We're joined by co-anchors Nick Dixon and Reshmi Nair. Nick, as residents of Barrie pick up the pieces in the aftermath of the tornado, you'll be getting an update from the city's mayor.
Nathan, it's been a remarkable day in Barrie. You know, all the visuals we've been getting from our drones to, you know, the helicopters, et cetera, just to see the damage, 24 hours later. We'll really get a sense of what the situation is like in Barrie. So we'll have the Mayor Jeff Lehman back on CP24 tonight to talk about exactly what the newest numbers are, the latest numbers are, what the rebuild is going to be like. And we'll also be speaking to an expert in construction who says perhaps these issues could have been avoided with just a few cheap additions to the home building.
That's interesting. And Reshmi, today the Ontario Medical Association put out a statement saying all healthcare workers should be fully vaccinated. You'll be hearing from the president of the OMA.
Yes, he will be joining us, as well as the CEO of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario, who has been calling for this since Monday, and Dr. Andrew Buzari, who has also been calling for this. We're going to hear from the healthcare industry that seems to be disagreeing with Doug Ford on this. Stay with us on CP24 tonight for that conversation.
Will do. Thank you, Reshmi and Nick. And don't forget, CP24 tonight airs immediately following this newscast on CP24 from 7 to 9.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar was down 6 basis points to close at 79.29 U.S. American benchmark oil gained 16 cents a barrel to close at 71.81. And the TSX Composite Index lost 198 points to close at 19,985.
With home prices up and supply limited, Toronto City Council has agreed on a new tax framework for vacant properties. The bylaw comes into effect on January 1st, 2022. Homeowners won't pay anything on that date, but the process of identifying affected properties will start. Homes sitting empty for at least 6 months will be included, with some exceptions. The vacancy tax will be payable starting in 2023. The city expects $55 to $66 million in new annual revenue, but says its objective is to get more homes back onto the market.
New data shows Apple is sliding in market share when it comes to smartphone purchases around the globe. For the first time ever, the iPhone producer was in 3rd place for sales last quarter. That's according to new numbers from Canalys. It fell behind Chinese smartphone producer Xiaomi as it grows its overseas business. Samsung remained on top in the count of phones shipped to distributors.
And whichever smartphone you use, we now know some of the new emoji likely to be released later this year. They include proposals like a smiley face with years of joy, a shocked face with a hand over its mouth, and a saluting emoji. Some other ideas include the melting smiley face, a low battery emoji, which could also indicate someone's tired, and a finger heart gesture.
The province has announced the 4th subway station on its planned extension of the TTC's Yonge Line. Stations at Steeles, Richmond Hill Centre, and Highway 7 will now be joined by a stop at Clark Avenue. Metrolink says that location was chosen over alternatives as it offers more connectivity at lower costs. Construction is set to begin in late 2023.
A new initiative is underway to help those who feel vulnerable in their own neighborhood. As CTV's Carol Charles reports, it follows recent acts of hate in Ontario communities.
Christopher Doyle is making the rounds in his Whitby neighborhood to spread the word about Companion Champions, the newest project undertaken by Nextdoor, a neighborhood app designed to connect with neighbors and cultivate kindness.
So Companion Champions is all about neighbors coming together to stand up to hate in our communities. So neighbors are coming to Nextdoor and they're standing up and they're saying that we're going to be there for neighbors who might be feeling vulnerable, those who don't feel safe to go out in their neighborhood for a walk, and they're saying we will walk with you.
And this is how it works.
So you can download the app, you can go to nextdoor.ca. Once you're there, Nextdoor has a help map. So this is where helpful residents place their name and address on a map, and they're letting you know that they will walk with you. So you can go there, and in a safe way, you can private message them at that point to let them know that you need help.
The initiative prompted by recent acts of hate in Hamilton, where a mother and daughter were walking through a parking lot wearing hijabs when a vehicle almost hit them, the suspect allegedly threatening them with racial slurs. and an attack on a Muslim family in London last month, killing 4 members of the family.
It's sad that it's come to this, but on the positive side, we're happy that people are coming together, and we're going to stand up to hate. That's what our neighbors are saying, loud and strong.
So far, more than 2,000 Canadians have expressed an interest in walking with their neighbors. The volunteers say the initiative will continue to run for as long as the need exists. Carol Charles, CTV News.
Tonight, we are on the ground in Germany for Western Europe's worst flooding in decades.
Throughout the night, it just kept coming down.
The rising death toll and growing danger as raging waters engulf the region. Later on CTV National News.
Into the weekend we go, Lindsay, but there are some showers to contend with.
Yes, we're still tracking active weather. It's just not severe like it was at this time yesterday, which is the good news. I'll step aside so you can see the satellite and radar imagery. The rain predominantly falling to the south of the GTA. But as we make our way through the overnight hours tonight, that rain will push into the Greater Toronto area. Rainfall warnings remain in effect for the areas that you see here in green. Total amounts of 75 millimeters of rain going to be possible by tomorrow morning. We, too, are looking at an unsettled start to the weekend. Waking up tomorrow, you will likely need the umbrella, but conditions improve into your Saturday evening for sure. Sunday's looking great, and then there's the rest of your 7-day forecast. Generally speaking, cooler conditions compared to this week, but a little less unsettled. Have a great weekend. Michelle and Nathan, back to you.
Same to you, Lindsay, and be sure to join Zoraida Allman later tonight for CTV News at 11:30.
You can also stay up to date by going to our website. And a reminder, CP24 Tonight with Reshmi Nair and Nick Dixon begins momentarily on CP24.
For Lindsay and all of us here at CTV News, have a great night.
Good night.